Hey, what is up guys? Jack and Matt here with the Toasty Bros, and today we're going to be doing a $650 gaming PC.
Let's get right into it, shall we? But first, a word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by GVGMall, an online marketplace to gain access to some really awesome discounted game keys and more specifically, Windows 10 licenses.
So if you guys use the link in the description down below, type in code TB20, you'll get 20% off your Windows 10 Pro activation key, and then you just take the key that they give you, you type into the Windows 10 activation, and that's it, you have Windows 10 activated.
We use GVGMall to buy the Windows 10 keys for a lot of computers. Like all of these computers, we use GVGMall, and it's a very helpful resource that you can use today by using the link in the description down below and also using code TB20 at checkout to save 20%.
So let's continue this video.
Alright guys, so this PC is actually a creation from a mistake that we made in a previous build. If you haven't seen the Dell Optiplex ray tracing PC, check that video out. But originally that was going to be a Xeon build focused around this cheap Xeon motherboard that we got, but we realized we got the wrong CPU for that motherboard, had to scrap that video, and then we decided to test it with an Optiplex. But today we're going to be diving into this 6-core Xeon, which is the E5 1650 V2. We got this off eBay for a relatively good price, and we're going to talk about this processor in particular and exactly how it makes up this, well, very interesting budget build.
So the things to note about this Xeon E5 is that it is actually in between a Ryzen 5 1600 and Ryzen 5 2600 as far as performance goes. This is a 6-core and it hyper-threads to 12, so you actually basically have like a Ryzen 1600 or Ryzen 2600 in this chip right here. It's just a lot older. So of course, as far as like BIOS updates and whatnot go and certain compatibility, this isn't gonna be like the best bang for buck, but as far as this plus the motherboard goes, you are getting a really good price for performance. I contradict exactly what I said. Not the best bang for buck, but it's good price for performance. Yeah. As far as the motherboard goes, with the really effed up pin that we just noticed, we'll fix that, don't worry. But this is the oversized socket because it's an X79 motherboard. Now it is very Chinese, it's a very Chinese motherboard. It's not actually a name brand board. You can get these like all day on eBay and like AliExpress and whatnot for around 40 bucks. So we ended up spending 40 on this and I believe about 60 on the processor. So we're only at about $100 for the motherboard processor combo. Now keep in mind with this processor, you're not gonna be doing any overclocking because these E processors are locked, but they do have a lot of expandability options. And like I said, out of the box, it's gonna run between a 1600 and 2600. So it's pretty respectable for 100 bucks. And one thing to also kind of note here is that these boards are actually in a way recycled. So the board itself is a brand new board and all the circuitry and whatnot, but then they reuse certain components from the X79 chipset to basically make this knockoff motherboard. So you are getting some genuine parts out of it, I suppose. So what we have for RAM is DDR3. This is 16 gigs at 1600 megahertz, and you know, it's a lot of RAMage. You could go up to 4 sticks on this board, but we're just gonna go with 2 because we're cheap like that. Plus we're trying to keep this somewhat competitive pricing.
And now for the graphics card. This is the same RTX 2060 that we got from NVIDIA, so thanks to them again, even though this really isn't sponsored by them. But this is the RTX 2060. It is a entry-level ray tracing card that could do some ray tracing if you wanted to, but still is a great 1080p high settings, even a little bit of 1440p gaming card with 6 gigs of VRAM. It delivers a lot of performance for the money, and that reference design does look really cool. As for storage, we have a 240 gigabyte SSD from ADATA. This is your basic 240 gig SSD. You can get them from anywhere between like $19 to like $24, sometimes even a little bit cheaper on certain sales. But 240 gigabytes is definitely more than enough for a build like this to get you stuff up and running, and you can always add a hard drive or get a bigger SSD if you want more storage. Now for the power supply, we have the EVGA 600 watt power supply. We got this deal on EVGA B stock for $30. Now for a more readily available option, we'll leave a link in the description down below to one of the Thermaltake power supplies that we use a lot. But this thing is a great value, especially if you do want to wait and go on EVGA B stock every single Wednesday. You get some really awesome deals on power supplies, which are pretty expensive right now, so it's definitely worth the wait. Now for the case, we're actually trying a Cougar case, and we're going to be pairing it with this liquid cooler in a second, but I'll talk about it in a minute. This is the Cougar MX330. We wanted to go with a budget case because, well, we wanted to save some money in other areas and try to get the most price performance that we could, while not totally sacrificing overall looks, and it does the job. It has tempered glass, as I mentioned, good mesh intake, which is actually pretty impressive to see in a budget case, and I'm excited to see how this looks when we put it all together. Now to cool the CPU, we went with our good friends, well, not really good friends, but maybe they can be good friends, up here with their 120 millimeter liquid cooler. Now, yes, We know a liquid cooler in a locked processor is kind of overkill. Originally, we were going with a Xeon that could overclock, but that kind of fell through. So we went with this liquid cooler, and we have it right now. If you wanted to save some money, you could go with a stock cooler or some other air cooler, which we'll leave links in the description down below. But yeah, 120 mil liquid cooler. It's gonna look really nice in this build. And you know what? I think I'm ready to see this thing put together. Let's do it. All right, guys, so as you can tell from the benchmarks, this PC performed very well. For the price point around $650, we were able to max out pretty much any game we wanted to play. We played some Apex Legends, some Fortnite. We benchmarked games like Shadow of the Tomb Raider and also Rainbow Six Siege, which is kind of a good suite of benchmarks to see performance in 2019 going into 2020.
So of course there is downsides to this build being as cheap and as old as it is. So the biggest downside, well, one of the biggest ones, I'll say, there's no real USB 3 on this. There is USB 3 on the case, but we had to adapt it down to USB 2. There's not really a real upgrade path. I mean, you might be able to get like a better Xeon for more monies, but I don't really highly recommend it. This is a pretty sweet spot build, honestly, as far as like a non-clockable Xeon goes.
And also the 24-pin stretches across the motherboard. So if you guys are trying to blast us for that, literally the 24-pin is on the opposite side of the motherboard. I don't get why that's there, but you know, you win some, you lose some when it comes to some of these knockoff motherboards.
So overall, we are really impressed with the build for the price being set, especially when we just did that i5 2400 build, and that came out to be like 550 or 500. So for only like 1 to 150 more, you get this, and this is a heck of a lot better. So if you want to buy into this stuff, use the links down below because that helps us and we really appreciate it. So as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
and we will see you guys in the next one. Bye.